Oklahoma State football was off last weekend, but no worries, there was still plenty of sports going on both here in Stillwater and around the country.
That's right, and we'll recap everything this week from golf to tennis to equestrian. And with basketball season soon approaching, we'll show you what you're going to expect to see here in Gallagher-Iba Arena on Eddie Sutton Court.
All that and more coming up on the Poke Report.
Welcome to this week's edition of the Poke Report. I'm Michaela Barker.
And I'm Amelia Henderson. We are coming to you this week from the historical Gallagher-Iba Arena on the legendary Eddie Sutton Court. Now, I know technically football was on a bye last week, but somehow they still brought us our biggest piece of news and a new piece of hardware.
That's right. The ASCA announced late last week that they would award OSU the 1945 National Championship Trophy. This would make OSU the first school to win a basketball and a football title in the same year. While many fans are very excited about this trophy, many don't know how or why we actually won. Nathan Heimel breaks down how we won the title and introduces us to our first ever national football title team.
Oklahoma State was awarded its first ever football national championship. The then Oklahoma A&M Aggies were named the 1945 national champions by the American Football Coaches Association.
It's neat for the family. Bob Fenimore and those guys, I hate that they couldn't be around for it. And I think the AFCA is obviously trying to do what they think's best for the game. It's really neat for the people involved and for the families.
The Aggies went undefeated, going 9-0, and capped the season by defeating Oklahoma 47-0 in Norman, and then with a 33-13 victory over St. Mary's in the Sugar Bowl. The team was led by its two-time All-American running back Bob Fenimore, who led the nation in rushing yards and finished third in Heisman voting. Fenimore was the first overall pick in the 1947 NFL Draft. The team still holds 5 school records, including fewest points allowed, lowest average points, fewest first downs, fewest rushing yards, and fewest yards allowed per game. Mike Yursich says the team are heroes. The Cowboys had 7 World War II veterans on the roster.
They call it the greatest generation of Americans, and what those guys were able to accomplish, they should be very proud. A lot of them served our country in the war, and then be able to win the national title on top of that is just remarkable. I think it's just a great thing for Oklahoma State football.
Well deserved, man. It's a great spotlight for OSU, and it's just a beautiful thing. Proud to have a national championship under our belt. Whether it was just a few years ago or 1945, so it's still a great feeling.
For the Poke Report, I'm Nathan Heimel.
Well, hopefully that well-deserved trophy will be up in Heritage Hall soon for everyone to see. Now, I know the football players are really excited about it being in the West End Zone right now.
Yeah, it's incredible. I've seen it, and it's really special that everybody at OSU gets to admire this for the first time in history. And another thing players are excited about is getting back to playing football. They head to Lawrence today to take on Kansas, and at the media luncheon on Monday, players and coaches let their enthusiasm and focus known going into today's game.
I feel good. We definitely, got the energy back, and we just can't wait to play football again, with my brothers and everything like that. So it's great. It's a great feeling.
I'm feeling good. We as a defense, we getting ready to attack this second part of the season. So we looking forward to it and ready to start back playing.
Just looking for consistency. We've put quarters together. We've had some great stops, and then there's times we've been very inconsistent and very undisciplined that have cost us. So that's just the goal. As a staff, we want to become a more consistent defense.
Kickoff is at 11 a.m. today for the Cowboys against the Jayhawks at Memorial Stadium. And luckily they don't have to travel too far, and that doesn't seem to be changing anytime soon after the Big 12 announcement this week.
And I was really looking forward to new places to travel for the conference games, but since we're on the subject of the Big 12, let's go live in the studio with our own Big 12 analyst, Matt McGann. Now, Matt, I know OSU didn't play last week, but how did things shake out in the Big 12?
All right. Thank you, ladies. Welcome to this week's edition of the Big 12 Recap and Analysis. I'm Matt McGann. Last week's matchups were some of the most intense, electrifying games of the year. Yeah, no, I'm lying. Nothing but blowouts around the Big 12. We start this week at that school down south with the Sooners facing off against the Wildcats. Sooners up by 7 inside the 10. Shovel pass to Joe Mixon, and hey-oh, Mixon goes over the defender for the score. However, Mixon wasn't done just yet. Mixon taking the handoff left, stops, plants, and throws to a wide open D.D. Westbrook for the score. However, this time it would be Westbrook who wasn't done just yet. OU looking to put this one away. Mayfield looks and delivers a perfect strike to a, stop me if you've heard this before, a wide open D.D. Westbrook for the 88-yard score. The Sooners dominate this one for 4 quarters, 38-17. The Sooners scored all of their touchdowns through the air last Saturday, and the two-headed backfield of Perine and Mixon each had a receiving touchdown. Oklahoma heads to Lubbock today to face the Raiders, and it will be the return of Baker Mayfield to Texas Tech since he transferred from there following the 2013 season. So, speaking of Tech, they hosted the number 20 West Virginia Mountaineers, and they got ran over all game long. West Virginia only had 1 passing touchdown and 5 on the ground. They outgained the Raiders 332-34, running the ball and asserting their dominance. Adding insult to injury as Rochelle Shell takes the handoff left and scampers into the end zone, effectively putting this one away. West Virginia smacks Texas Tech 48-17, and they are 5-0 for the first time since 2012. The Mountaineers nearly had 3 different guys surpass 100 yards on the ground, and this West Virginia squad should be taken very seriously, people. They have a big test today as they host TCU. Look for Morgantown to make it tough for the Horned Frogs to escape with a win. Baylor forced 5 turnovers and doubled the Jayhawks' yardage on offense as they smashed Kansas 49-7. The Longhorns made up for a lackluster first half with a 21-point third quarter. However, there are problems in Austin. The 3 wins from Texas have a combined record of 4-16. Yikes. They travel to Kansas State in hopes for a statement win against the Wildcats. Time for the best and the worst this week, and yeah, I think it's about time that we make it official that D.D. Westbrook has officially become a problem. And D.D. Westbrook hasn't just been in laboratories recently, he's also been in the end zone. Over the last 3 weeks, he has averaged 8.5 receptions, over 190 yards, and nearly 3 touchdowns per game. Per game, people. Just incredible. And he plays Texas Tech this week? Can you say field day? Now for the worst, and when you get in the end zone as much as Westbrook does, not everything goes smoothly, such as getting mauled by your own lineman resembling a grizzly bear attacking its prey. And I get that you're amped and whatnot, but he jumps on him and then actively shoves him down. You gonna take his lunch money after? Control yourself, big fella. Now time for the AP poll, and wait, the Big 12 has someone inside the top 10? Yes, it's true. Baylor at 9, while West Virginia leapfrogs OU inside the top 15, and Oklahoma moves up to 16. OSU is super duper close to getting inside the top 25, while TCU is receiving votes as well. Now, changing up the graphic just a little bit as we show overall record and conference record, Baylor and West Virginia are still undefeated on the year, while they and Oklahoma are undefeated in conference this year. Now, that will just about do it for this week's Big 12 recap and analysis. However, I will be back in the studio with a special guest. It's going to be a blast and a half. Don't miss it. Back to you, ladies.
Football had the week off, but a lot of other OSU sports did not.
That's right. In fact, let's start things off with cross country. The team traveled up to Penn State last weekend for the Penn State Open. Hassan Abdi didn't disappoint in his long-anticipated debut for the Cowboy cross-country team, taking second at the Penn State Open and leading Oklahoma State to its 3rd straight victory in Happy Valley. Abdi's run of 25.01 got him 2nd overall. The meet also marked a big day for another OSU newcomer, Michelle Bignani, who suited up in orange for the first time in women's 6K. The Cowgirls finished 3rd behind host Penn State and Mississippi. The regular season is over and the real test begins for OSU in 2 weeks at the Big 12 Cross Country Championships, where the Cowboys and Cowgirls seek to defend their conference titles from last season.
Well, OSU definitely showed off its brightest orange, not just in Stillwater.
And one OSU team that stayed here in Stillwater was women's soccer. The Cowgirls had a packed week as they hosted Bedlam and celebrated their senior night. The Poke Report's own Montel Vidat recaps their weekend.
Conference games are always important, especially when it's against your rival school. After losing the first matchup, Oklahoma State was looking to redeem itself Friday night in a Bedlam rematch. The Cowgirls returned home and were looking to extend its 3-match win streak, but the Sooners had other plans. In the first half, OSU's offense was almost non-existent. The Sooners mainly controlled possession, and when the Cowgirls had the ball, they only put up 1 shot compared to the rivals' 9. In the 20th minute, the Sooners scored with a corner kick when OU forward Madison Saliba hooked the ball in, and with 3 Cowgirls in the vicinity, somehow an own goal was scored. Head coach Colin Carmichael wasn't shy in voicing his opinion on the team's first half efforts.
We didn't show up. I don't know why. So we were really disappointed to be, not to be down at half because we deserved to be down, but to kind of go out with a whimper in the first half, it was really poor from us. It's the worst half we've played since the last Bedlam game.
On to the second half, with OSU looking to bounce back. The chance slipped away in the 47th minute when Saliba earned a free kick and capitalized again, thus sealing the victory. Forward Courtney DK knew it was a tale of 2 different halves, and that shouldn't have been the case.
It's always a fight. It's no different than Bedlam, but we didn't match their intensity the first half. Second half, it was too late.
This is the 4th straight loss to OU, but OSU holds a strong 28-3 all-time record in the rivalry. Sunday afternoon was a special occasion for OSU. Hosting TCU, it was senior day, and the team would be saying farewell to 7 of its players. For the match, it was a windy afternoon, but it didn't stop OSU from taking 11 shots and scoring on 3. In the 21st minute, midfielder J.C. Jones was able to spin off the defender and score, putting them up 1-0. Less than 7 minutes later, the Cowgirls scored again when Haley Woodard fought for the ball, gained possession, and put one in just outside the box to double the lead. In the second half, DK added on after earning a penalty where she would put it away for the final goal. OSU is off this week, but will take on Little Rock at home on October 25th. For the Poke Report, I'm Montel Vidot.
The Cowgirls still have 2 regular season games left to play, one non-conference matchup against Little Rock, and then their final Big 12 game against West Virginia. Now, even though this women's season is ending, there's still plenty of sports in action.
And one of those teams is Cowgirl Golf. Rain pelted the Stanford Golf Course last Sunday and forced the cancellation of the 3rd and final round of the Stanford Intercollegiate with the Oklahoma State women's golf team in 9th place. Kenzie Neeson posted an even par 71 on Saturday and finished in a tie for 18th place. Linnea Johansson wasn't far behind with a 1/72, which was good for an 8th place finish. This wraps up the fall season for the Cowgirls.
Well, with that weather issue they had, it really looks like the seasons are starting to change.
Absolutely, and it's actually starting to get just a little bit colder here in Stillwater, and that means one thing, and that is that basketball season is approaching very quickly. The Cowgirls had a monumental season with Jim Littell in his 5th season as head coach. Our own Austin Taylor takes us through the past 365 days with Cowgirl basketball.
Oklahoma State University women's basketball team looks to continue its success going into the season. The Cowgirls open practice October 3rd inside Gallagher Iba Arena. With plenty of new faces arriving on the scene, the Cowgirls are eager to add to its record of 110 wins in the past 5 seasons. 4 true freshmen have arrived in Stillwater, and head coach Jim Littell looks for all of them to contribute to the program early.
We got to count on some of the new kids coming in to provide a spark as well. They're not going to be there for you every night. As we know, it's a tough league for freshmen, but we feel very good about the new people that have come in.
OSU was picked 8th in the conference in last year's preseason rankings, but finished 4th with big wins over North Carolina and Baylor.
That's it. The Cowgirls have done it. The Cowgirls have upset the 4th-ranked team in America.
The Cowgirls finished the 2015-16 campaign with a record of 21-10 after a first-round loss to St. Bonaventure in the NCAA tournament.
Oklahoma State 65-54.
Forward Caitlin Lecker and center Kaylee Jensen look to give the Cowgirls the senior leadership it needs to have a successful year.
Kaylee's worked very hard in the offseason on her game and on her shape. She's really taken care of her body this year, and she understands that we're going to really need her this year just like we did last year, and I think she's ready for it. She's definitely prepared.
Despite losing first-team All-Big 12 selection Brittany Martin to graduation and the WNBA draft, Coach Littell says he's hopeful the team can have another year that leads to the tournament.
Well, you can't replace a player of that magnitude with an incoming freshman or a new player. So we've talked about our team doing it collectively.
The Cowgirls take on Arkansas State November 11th for its first regular season game inside GIA. For the Poke Report, I'm Austin Taylor.
The Cowgirls will tip off their season this month on the 30th in an exhibition game against Southeastern Oklahoma State.
And with the season right around the corner, it's really exciting to see what Cowgirls will be hitting the court this season.
And what's also exciting is to see all the different players that are stepping up into new leadership roles, especially on the men's basketball team with all the new faces that we're seeing this year. But one face that OSU fans should remember is that of senior forward Leighton Hammonds. Our own Bailey Overstreet sat down with Hammonds this week to talk about his new leadership role on the team.
The Oklahoma State University men's basketball team is entering its third week of practice. Senior Leighton Hammonds looks to take his team in his hands, showing leadership on and off the court.
Taking it on. Coaches give me a lot of responsibilities. Just trying to mentor these young guys, letting them know that it's going to be a hard season, especially in the Big 12. It's going to have some ups, have some downs, but we have to stay together.
Though Hammonds wasn't happy with the way last season turned out, he and Coach Underwood have high expectations for this season.
I'm excited. They're buying into what myself and our staff are teaching, what we're trying to implement. They have been a very committed group from day one, and Leighton Hammond, a senior who's proven it, who's done it, who's been successful, has given us tremendous leadership, and been very, very pleased. And then
3 big Mondays in a row. The Big 12 goes to overtime.
Hammonds has played in all 4 seasons as a Cowboy, and with this new coaching staff, he has said he's become more versatile.
Just some overall game. Just kind of transitioning from being a four-man, a face of four-man, to being a perimeter player now, because in our offense, I'll be on the perimeter, I'll be in the high post, but just being more of a face-up guy, just working on my ball handling has got me doing that a lot, and just being an overall player, just defense and offense, just being a player, just creating plays on defense, creating plays on offense.
With Coach Underwood at the helm, there is no room for the Cowboys to make mistakes. Underwood has coached and recruited in the Big 12 and has been very successful.
Guys not making free throws, guys missing layups, guys just having guys turn over the ball, guys putting their heads down, and so me and Phil and Juwan, we have to go and tell them, hey, we don't have time for you guys just to be down on yourself, because we're a team and one of our players is down, we're all down. So the best way to do that is just keep encouraging guys.
Change is never easy, but Hammond says the new staff has made the adjustment simple for not only him, but the whole team.
I wouldn't say nothing major. Just it's like anything new, you gotta adjust. It's this is my first time ever being out of school and having a new coach. So just in a whole new staff. So it was just basically just hearing out coach, seeing what he had to say, what his plans are, what he wants me to do, and then just going forward with it.
Hammonds and the Cowboys have 6 days until they're on the big stage with homecoming hoops next Friday. For the Poke Report, I'm Bailey Overstreet.
Also returning to the court this season is reigning Big 12 Freshman of the Year, Juwan Evans. This week, Evans was named to the watch list for the 2017 Bob Cousy Point Guard of the Year award. Now, speaking of players returning to the court, next week you're sitting down with a former OSU basketball star, correct?
That's right, and that's one interview you will not want to miss. And another OSU sport that battles it out on this very court is wrestling. Now, everybody at Oklahoma State knows that we're all about family here, and one man that holds that dear to his heart is Hall of Fame wrestling coach John Smith. Doug Thompson met up with the man to find out what Oklahoma State and family truly mean to him.
The legend of Oklahoma State wrestling coach John Smith is among the greatest in the history of sports. He won 2 NCAA championships while at OSU and 2 Olympic gold medals in 1998 and 1992. Now in his 26th season as head wrestling coach, Smith is training the next generation of world champion wrestlers, one of which happens to be his very own son, Joe Smith. What's interesting is that as a freshman, his dad did not want him to compete.
Remember, he was young last year, started as a true freshman. I haven't done that very often. I'd like to have avoided it last year, but I really had no choice. I thought we had a chance to win, we did.
As a true freshman, Joe finished with a 34-5 dual record and was named an All-American. At the NCAA championships last year, Smith was disappointed with his 7th-placed finish. Now in his second year, he is confident in his ability to contend for a title.
I think I'm the best. I do think I'm the best. I know I can be the best, but it all matters how you perform on the mat and when it counts, and that's when it comes down to.
Joe is in one of the most unique spots an athlete could possibly be in. He is ranked 3rd in the country in his weight class and is being coached by the greatest American wrestler of all time, who happens to also be his father. There are 2 sides of John Smith, according to Joe. One is his coach in the wrestling room, but when they go home each night, John is simply a dad who wants the best for his son.
When I'm out of the wrestling room, he's my dad, and we have that father-son relationship. It's a really good relationship, but in the wrestling room, it's like nobody else in there. He's my coach just like everybody else.
The bond the two share is unrivaled. They will always have something in common, something to talk about, and something to relate to each other with. John is challenged with attempting to treat Joe like any other student-athlete in practice. Sometimes it doesn't always work out that way.
You tend to want to push a little bit harder. You tend to judge him a little bit differently. Winning and losing's a little bit different with me and him. Where I might support some kid that got beat in an ugly match and build him up, I might be kicking Joe in the tail, you know. Those are the things that I got to continue to balance out.
Only a sophomore, Joe has his whole career ahead of him. After his years at OSU, he hopes to compete on the world stage and fulfill his lifelong dream of winning a gold medal, just like his father before him. For the Polk Report, I'm Doug Thompson.
So many people, myself included, are excited to watch Coach Smith and his son hit the mat this season. And father-son duos are always an interesting dynamic to watch in sports.
And speaking of wrestling, preseason rankings by Intermat came out this week, and the Cowboys took the top spot in both the dual and team tournament rankings. There are 9 Cowboys that are ranked individually and 8 projected as All-Americans.
Those rankings really don't surprise me with OSU's past success in wrestling, and the Cowboys hit the mat for the first time this season on November 6th against Bucknell.
And another team that has had continued success is men's tennis. Oklahoma State Tennis's Julian Cash and Durance Mendoza secured spots in the second round of qualifying play at the Harlingen Country Club men's $25,000 futures last Saturday. Both Cash and Mendoza cruised through their matches on day 1 as they recorded straight set victories to advance. Cash and Mendoza were later joined in the second round by their teammate Arjun Kadhi, who received a first round bye in the tournament. Cash eventually fell in the main draw, but teammate Kadhi bowed out Wednesday. The Cowboys returned to Stillwater to host the ITA Central Region Championship, which began Thursday. The tournament marks the first time that OSU has competed on their home court this season.
It's great to see the amount of success these two thriving programs have had, but many would argue that this success wouldn't come without great coaching. Women's tennis has seen monumental success since coach Chris Young has come to Stillwater. The Polk Report's own Elijah Silas Tefelsky reviews how the Cowgirls have come to success.
The OSU women's tennis team is coming off a historic run to the national title game last season, and Coach Chris Young is excited about the prospects for not only this season, but many seasons to come.
We want to pick up right where we left off last season to be the team to beat in the Big 12 and compete for a Big 12 championship. I think that should be the standard of our program every year, to be able to win the Big 12 title. And then obviously this season we want to compete for the national championship. I think that's our ultimate goal. We were on the doorstep last year, and with, as you mentioned, the girls coming back, I think we have the experience to be able to do it.
Coach Chris Young is hoping the long and successful postseason run will help give the Cowgirls the confidence they need to bring home the school's first women's and tennis national title.
Sometimes it's difficult the first time you're in there, not having the experience and not understanding what those emotions are going to feel like, but I thought the girls did a great job of handling it last season, and for the majority of the girls coming back this next season, I think it bodes well for us having some really good experience.
The Cowgirls returned 6 players from last year's team, and the experience they gained from last season can only be beneficial to the incoming players and building the program, Young says.
I think the girls are putting in extra time, even more time than before, and really seeing the value of getting more fit and more, and stronger. And they've helped the young girls to realize right away when they come in that it's definitely a commitment and exactly how hard you have to work and what you have to do and the investment that you have to put in. And our young kids have come in with a lot of great things happening for them.
Heading into the season, Young is extremely proud of the team he has and wants to send his seniors out with nothing less than a national title.
Last season was just so awesome to see them just enjoy the moment and enjoy what they were able to accomplish. So, I definitely don't do it for myself. I do it for these kids to be able to have a great experience, and I think it'd be great for OSU and great for these girls.
You can catch the Cowgirls' season opener on January 20th when they take on in-state rival Oral Roberts in Stillwater. For the Polk Report, I'm Elijah Tefelsky.
Well, best wishes to Coach Young and the Cowgirls as they continue their season. And I'm really looking forward to seeing some of the alumni on the tennis team next week for America's Greatest Homecoming Celebration.
And speaking of Homecoming Week, my favorite event of the week is Homecoming and Hoops, where you have the community coming out to support both basketball teams.
And speaking of both basketball and alumni, I had the opportunity to fly to Australia this summer to meet up with former Oklahoma State walk-on Mason Cox. Mason will be traveling almost 9,000 miles back to Stillwater for America's Greatest Homecoming Celebration, and we'll also get the chance to talk to him next week. You know, it's really crazy that Mason went from never playing basketball in his life to walking on here at Oklahoma State, especially in a conference like the Big 12.
And speaking of the Big 12, I'm going to head over to the studio with our Big 12 analyst, Matt McGann, to talk some hoops.
All right, and while you head that way, we're going to take a quick break, but don't go away. There's plenty more to come here on the Polk Report. Welcome back to the Poke Report. Well, it looks like Michaela made it to the studio, so let's go live now with Matt and Michaela.
Well, I definitely just sprinted here, but Matt and I are pumped to talk Big 12 basketball.
Well, Michaela, what do we need to know about Big 12 basketball this season?
Well, Matt has 5 keys prepared for us today to look out for this Big 12 basketball season.
And Big 12 basketball season, it's here, it's close, and we're going to see if Kansas can make it 13 in a row. They are absolutely incredibly stacked this year. 3 potential first-round draft picks. Now, there are a possible 3 teams, in my opinion, that I believe can dethrone them, and the first one is West Virginia. They have amazing defense, number 2 in the nation in steals and offensive rebounds. The next one, Iowa State. They have preseason Big 12 Player of the Year, Monty Morris, very talented there. And the dark horse, Texas, with Shaka Smart, they had the number 1 toughest schedule in the nation last year. So we will see if Shaka Smart gets him a little bit more experience down the road.
And you know, this summer I actually was at a press conference with Coach Smart, and he just came back from South America from the FIBA America's Under-18 Championship, where he was able to bring home gold for the USA.
And see, on that team was Jarrett Allen, who was an incredible prospect for him as well. 5-star center, and he is incredibly lengthy. 7.5-foot wingspan as a freshman. Absolute freak. However, in the Big 12, he is number 2 on my list for the NBA prospects. Number 1 is Josh Jackson. Incredible athletic ability, really plays above the rim and wears emotions on his sleeve, which can be positive and negative. Now, regarding back to Allen, who was the number 2 prospect in the Big 12, in my opinion, he's the complete opposite. He has sometimes little to no motor and gets down on himself. So if he can establish a motor and really get that high gearing intensity that Shaka Smart desperately wants, you better believe that is a potential Big 12 Player of the Year.
And now switching over from players to coaches, now that we have Coach Brad Underwood here at OSU, you know, he was at SFA the past couple years, and that was in the Southland Conference. How do you think he's going to fare in the Big 12?
Well, hopefully he has the same kind of success. He was 3-time Coach of the Year for that Southland Conference, and he is a very intense dude, as we talked about. We interviewed him a couple weeks ago. Very defensive first kind of guy, and that says the same for the next guy, for Chris Beard. 10 years as a Texas Tech assistant under head coach Bob Knight. And now we talk about Jamie Dixon, a 2007 TCU Hall of Fame inductee, and he's going to coach where he graduated from at TCU. He is an alum there. Very successful and very experienced kind of guy. In 13 years at Pitt, he won 20 games in every single season except for 1. Truly impressive from him.
Absolutely. And since we're talking about basketball, I just want to throw out there, March Madness is definitely one of my favorite times of the year. I love sitting on my couch, eating lots of junk food, making my brackets.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
I just want to throw this out there. I've believed in Coach Brad Underwood since 2014 when I picked SFA for that upset in the first round.
Oh,
so,
you did? You have any proof of that?
Underwood. Yes, I have a screenshot on my phone.
Yeah. Don't believe her, Coach. Don't believe her, Coach.
I've believed in you since day one.
Well, see, maybe you believe in Coach Underwood for the last couple of years and whatnot, but me believing in Big 12 and postseason play, that's a completely different story. They had 7 teams out of the 10 teams make the Big 12 tournament. Only 3 got out of the first round. That is absolutely incredible. OU was the first team in the last 3 years from the Big 12 to make the Final Four. Baylor, West Virginia, and Texas were all out by double-digit seeds. OU snapped a 3-year streak of the Big 12 not making the Final Four, and the Big 12 has only had 3 teams since 2008 make the Final Four: Kansas, and OU. And that's just incredible when you think of the Big 12 conference in basketball and their prowess.
And you know what's closer than March Madness is non-conference play. And let me tell you, I'm actually really excited about the Big 12 SEC matchups this year.
And the Big 12 has dominated in every single one. They went 7-3 in last year, and they've been 3-0 with the Big 12 SEC conference matchups. A couple of non-conference matchups that you're just going to die for. Kansas at Kentucky, and Kansas is also going to take on Duke and Indiana. Oklahoma State is going to travel to Wichita to take on the Shockers. Texas is going to be facing off against Michigan. OU against Big Ten champ Wisconsin. And of course, Baylor versus Oregon in those highlighter uniforms that, are going to be a little bit of a sword to the eye.
Oh no, I definitely remember those uniforms, and not for a good reason.
It was a battle of the highlighters, and I don't think anybody won.
No, I don't think so either. And thank you for all this insight today. I know I'm super excited for basketball season to start.
Yeah, I can't wait for basketball.
Football season's great, but basketball season is under.
Hoop season is my number one. And you know what? Thank you for joining me in the studio. It gets a little bit lonely, so I'm glad you were able to show up and have some fun.
Of course, anytime. It's a nice place you've got here.
Oh yeah, welcome.
All right, Michaela. Well, we'll see you back here in a little bit. While we wait for her, we're going to take a quick break, but don't go away. We have plenty more to come here on the Poke Report.
Welcome back to the Poke Report. I'm Michaela Barker alongside Amelia Henderson, and we are in Gallagher-Iba Arena on Eddie Sutton Court.
And I've really enjoyed talking basketball with you, but now it's time to change things back to football for our favorite part of the show, our picks.
And you know it's only your favorite part of the show because you're up on me by 3 now, right?
Of course I know that, of course.
Well, one of these days my upset predictions is going to come true and nobody's going to expect it.
Yeah, okay, we'll see.
Well, speaking of upset predictions, we're going to head down to Tuscaloosa for Alabama and Texas A&M.
Well, this is definitely going to be the game to watch. Both teams are ranked in the top 10, and this was definitely a throw-up for me. I wasn't really sure who to choose because they both have been playing very well this year. So I'm definitely going with Alabama, though.
I'm going to go with Texas A&M, especially with those Aggies and their win over Tennessee last week. I think that Trevor Knight really has that offense rolling, and that, I don't know, I think they're going to get the Crimson Tide, so gig 'em.
Well, now we're keeping things in the state with Arkansas at Auburn.
Well, I'm going to go with Auburn this week. I think since those teams are so closely ranked, I think it's going to be a shootout until the end, but I think that Auburn's home field advantage and their defense is really going to give them the edge over Arkansas.
Yeah, and Arkansas may still be holding on to the success from last week's game, but I just think that Auburn's the better team overall, so I'm going with Auburn.
Now we're going to head on up to Kansas, where Texas takes on Kansas State.
Well, with this game, Charlie Strong really doesn't have that many cards left to play, so he's got to come out with the win today if he's going to keep his position as head coach.
I'm also going to go with Texas this week. I mean, have you seen Deontay Foreman? That guy is amazing. He's a great running back, and I really think he's going to be able to find the holes in the defense of Kansas State and really score some touchdowns for the Longhorns, so hook 'em.
All right, fair enough. And as always, our last pick is OSU on the road today against Kansas.
Well, I'm definitely going with Oklahoma State. I think that we, after this bye week, have really rested up and are ready to play the Jayhawks.
I agree. This bye week was definitely needed for the Pokes. We had a lot of injured players, but I think we're going to come out with fresh legs and definitely have the edge. So, go Pokes.
Will definitely be some good games on TV to watch today, but that is all that we have for you today on the Poke Report. But make sure to tune in next week as we send a crew to Kansas City for the Big 12 Basketball Media Days. Well, they'll come back with a report on who the media picks to win the conference.
And be sure to follow us on Twitter at the Poke Report. Thank you so much for watching. And as always, go Pokes!